Hello, everybody, and thank you for again tuning into our Franciscan Climate Talks. We're already in the second and final week of COP29, and as the pressure is building and time is running out, we'd like to take a look at what to watch out for during these last couple of days of the 2024 UN Climate Conference. If you're curious about what happened so far, you can find links to our previous videos in the description below. Today, I'm again joined by Elena from the World Lutheran Federation, who is still in Baku. I'm also very happy to welcome Budi, our International Advocacy Director, and Brother Rodrigo, a Friar Minor from Brazil, who visited Baku last week. Elena, let's start with you, because you're still in Baku, and I wanted to ask you if you can give us a sense of where the negotiations are at this moment, what is happening, what will still be discussed in the next couple of days, and maybe most importantly, what are the big sticking points in the negotiations at the moment?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. So I think the negotiations flows really slow. Today there was a presidency stop take. There were asked some ministers to do the informal consultations on the differences. There are many of them. I think I can mention that the NCQG, there is still a discrepancy on the contributor base. Um, there are they said that there is the big picture is 1.4 trillions or 1.53 trillions, but there are three options, and none of them mention the trillions. Only 400 between 200 billions to 600 billions. Um, I think also I don't know if they will reach any agreement on the quantum. On the quality, there is no no progress. And I also would like to say that there is nothing about having the loss and damage as a third pillar of the NCPG. So there were also some updates on the mitigation work program. What was really difficult to understand is that they said that the agreement was to reaffirm that they will submit new NDCs by 2025. So, and we assume that last year at COP28, they already took this decision, no? So now they are reaffirming, so there is nothing new on this, no? On the global goal on adaptation, also, I think the decision is to continue this discussion next year in Bonn. No, so it is really sad to see that there is no willingness to have a really ambitious outcome of this COP. No, and also so we only have 2 more days for discussions. Apparently, there will be a lot of informal during well, was during to the afternoon here, but tomorrow too, no? And there will be another announcement on the outcomes of this informal.
Thank you very much. And Budi, maybe this is one for you. It seems like there's a lot of back and forth about the loss and damage. Of course, about the money is a big issue. But why is it so difficult to come to an agreement? Because, of course, there are the financial implications, but are there also other dynamics between these governments that make it so difficult to come to an agreement?
In my view, some phenomena happens not only in UNFCCC, but in other multilateral platform that to reach agreement is really challenging at the moment. And I think it has been reflected very well in this COP29. in which, although multilateralism is still very much needed in trying to solve the key issues and key crises, but with the current change of political landscape in several countries, and also by the fact that certain countries are really thinking only on their national interest instead of trying to respond to the common threat, common problem, they fail to agree even on the minimum things that they have agreed upon before. So I think it is very sad that 2 days before the end of COP, I think the outcome is rather bleak. So this is also to show that the fact we are questioning whether this UNFCCC is really fit for the purpose. No, the negotiation is fit for the purpose because so far, from the victim's perspective, all the promises that they have given, or all the commitments that they have given, when we revisit them again into much more technical or much more concrete, there is a very high difficulty in coming to ambitious climate actions.
Yeah. And Rodrigo, maybe this one for you. Budi mentioned the victims. You work closely with people suffering the impacts of climate change. If the COP fails to take action on these issues, including loss and damage, can you give us a sense what that actually means at the grassroots and, for the communities that live with the real life impacts of climate change every day?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I think there are different ways of looking. One, I think, if we look from the perspective of the UN and the countries and the process, and to tell you, the absence of strong resolutions at the end, what is different from the other COPs? I think this is one aspect that we need to consider. And then it's confirmed that the way the discussions are and the way they deal with the agenda, it's very difficult to find a concrete solutions, even though when you see in the practice during the process, outside maybe the main rooms where they are discussing more politically which kind of item they will change, they will put, etc. But when we see in the different meeting rooms, side events, etc., there is also the position of the UN together with the corporations implementing different approaches that makes harder for the communities. So I think what is left for the communities is to continue to struggle. And I think the need for the organized civil society to find its own agenda, and with this agenda to concrete, have a platform of struggle. But we have a challenge. It's the comprehension of the items, because even though the finance of climate and all this money, at the end, where this money are going to the poor countries, okay? They are going to the governments, those who are in need, to what? To adapt to the climate change, and this money is to implement technologies. This money is to implement policies that are in favor of the so-called green economy, also for the services of the ecosystems and environment, to implement the economy of ecosystems and biodiversity, and then at the end, it's to keep the machine that is causing the impacts continuing. I don't say they are not important, those decisions. As we saw just now, the decisions, the final declaration of G20, it's very interesting. I think we need to reflect on that. I think it's improvement as coming from this type of states, but it will really be implemented. So what I think is for the communities and for those who have access to these meetings, the importance is to understand the game and to understand the different positions. And then to go back home and to organize better, how to confront and how to explain to the partners, to the social movements, to the communities, indigenous groups, etc., where how the challenge is growing and which strategies we need.
Okay, thank you very much. You actually mentioned access, and that's a question for, I guess, for all three of you. How did you find access to this COP for civil society? Was it open to engage? And I'm thinking of formal access, but for example, also practical access when it comes to flight expenses. Is there still space in these COPs for civil society to really engage?
Maybe I can, for me. So I think the first thing that we need to mention or to take into account is that this year there was a restructuration of the civil society engagement to the university. This is something that was discussed during SV in Bonn. Um, for example, one of the impacts of these decisions was that many organizations receive less accreditations, less badges. So some organizations receive only one, and it's really difficult to engage from the delegation. No? There also there are the online platform. Yeah, so and I think many people can follow the negotiations online, but they cannot interact really, no, with the negotiators. I think so. Well, usually flights are really expensive, and this year hotels are really expensive too. No? So what I would like to say that is also food at the venue is extremely expensive. So you maybe one coffee is the cost of one coffee is around 10 euros. You know? So it's really difficult, no, for organizations for civil society in the global south to afford this cost. No, so yeah, and I think there are other logistics problems, but every cup is more and more expensive. No?
And I guess coffee becomes important considering how long these COPs continue. Budi, Rodrigo, do you have anything to add?
Rodrigo, go ahead. Go ahead.
I agree with Elena, but I would add a few things. The last COPs, they happened in countries that are not an example for the issues that we're struggling for. I think this is the first. The issue of accreditation to be present inside the blue zone and make the blue zone not only a space for the businessmen, but the business organizations and for the interest of the big groups. It's very hard to say that there is really access. If we saw at where the festival, I would say, was much alive, the pavilions, very expensive to hold one. I don't remember the price, but very expensive, controlled by sophisticated groups. Of course, there were groups representing the people, but we didn't really found, let's say, space for the people. So that's why if I know we're gonna talk about and make a comparison in terms of possibilities next year for COP30, we hope, then we will have a big presence at the People Summit, where then we can really integrate and discuss, And there's nowadays a tendency. I participate in where the meeting with the vice president, some ministers, etc. It's a kind of a consensus. Now everybody dialogues. Now everybody is possible. Everything is possible. It's very interesting to see one of the Brazilian ministries talking about agribusiness of low intensity, monocrops of soybeans of low intensity. What does it mean? These people invent, and we are on the same chip. And then when we listen to the representative of UNCTAD, the lady who was talking about critical minerals, and she treated the issue just like business. This is a real business. But during her talk, she reflected that in the 80s, to the business people, saying, look, we need to change our behavior, change our approach. Because, look, in the 80s, we struggled to separate from the states. I remember she is right. Maybe she was talking about Reagan and Margaret Thatcher era. And now they are partners. We need to understand that many laws we induced, we need to change now. Of course, they need investments from the countries. They need that money. Capitalism lives from the money from the people. So other than the goods they take that should be public because they belongs to the planet. But so there is a big challenge. But of course, the space, if we see the space as itself, was very interesting, very, very, I think, practical, etc. But this is formality.
From my side, I think there's also the problem of disconnections between the reality of the host country with the process that is already not the best process inside COP venue, you know. So there is no possibility of doing a demonstration outside the COP compound, for example, which is very, very important. This is very important. And unfortunately, in the last 3 COPs, there was no possibility to mobilize people. So there is a kind of disconnections between the people of Azerbaijan or Baku with what we discuss inside. So there were some so-called climate actions or demonstrations within COP compound, the blue zone, but it is really, how to say it, planned in a certain way that finally just to provide a little bit of symbolic space here and there. But there's no concrete mobilizations. Like, for example, the blue zone that Rodrigo explained, there were some interesting talks, but also we have to acknowledge that's also a marketplace for the business, for certain institution to sell their product. And even in the green zone is almost openly a marketplace. It was very interesting when at one point I came back from Blue Zone together with Rodrigo and also Igor and some other delegates. We met with 2 young person, one's from Hong Kong, the other one from my own country, Indonesia. And for them, they saw COP as a marketplace, just purely as a marketplace. They are selling their produce, their products to either government or enterprises. Full stop. For them, it's like a real trade fair, like any other trade fair. And they are very honest with that. So this is to say that the access of the civil society is getting smaller, and it's a bit like getting more difficult with the fact that there are more business interests, not only the big business interests that are very present there, not only the lobbyists that are part of the state delegations, because the lobbyists from the industry, from the business interest are part also of the delegations, but also in terms of the so-called more other stakeholder space is also being populated by being invaded by the business interest. That's very unfortunate that it's getting smaller and smaller in terms of access of this civil society of the victims in the COP processes.
Yeah, maybe to add of what Rodrigo said and also you, Woody. So the way that the industries or businesses are there, and also the pavilions and the cost of the pavilion, the investment to have a pavilion there. I read an article recently that last year they need to rent many equipment, no? So most of them are renting coffee machines. So last year they paid 7,000 US dollar for the 2 weeks to rent this coffee machine and offer coffee to the participants there. And this year the cost of the coffee machines is 30,000 US dollar. Imagine. So it's ridiculous the prices that so the budget that they need to have to implement these pavilions. You know. On the other side, I also would like to highlight what you said about the lobbies. So I think in the last statistics about participants from fossil fuel industries, we have in this COP around 1,700 lobbies from fossil fuel industries. We were discussing today during the Interfaith Liaison Committee that what we can do as a civil society organization to ensure that there should be some criteria to select the host of the COP. No, so not to be a fossil fuel, not to base their economy on fossil fuel industries, or also all the issues related to human rights, but also how can these COPs can be more accessible for people, especially the most affected, that should be considered in the discussion. No, they should be part of the table. No, when we are discussing climate policies. Back to you.
That actually brings me to a larger question I would like to ask. Because these UN climate conferences have, come under a lot of criticism. It looks all but certain that we'll break through the 1.5 degrees barrier of global heating that was put down in the Paris Agreement. This year, Papua New Guinea boycotted the talks in Baku as a total waste of time due to frustration about empty promises and inaction by powerful states. Argentina has withdrawn its negotiators. The incoming Trump administration might withdraw from the Paris Agreement altogether. So again, for all three of you, does the Paris Agreement and these COPs, does it still have the credibility it needs to solve these issues of climate change? And then maybe to add to that, like what can we do about that, depending on your answer?
Well, what can you do? I think it's hard. But if the countries, the governments, they don't have credibility, it's a consequence. I think this is connected. When you say Milei left, but what means? When you say Trump is going, I think it reflects, I think it shows us how this is getting much more challenging in terms of how to overcome this. But anyway, it's the space that we have. We say in Brazil, this is what we have for today. This is and we need to struggle. But I think this struggle should start also in the different countries in terms of mobilizing and in terms of to ask for more credibility. And credibility, if we see the results of elections around the world and the far rights getting over the power, which will be the consequences? We already see the consequences in terms of the implementation of different development programs and also some, especially in terms of aid, international aid, etc. But I think so credibility comes through a process of how democracy nowadays is challenged in different countries and how they can be accountable. And of course, the process of the dependence of the UN regarding to the corporations.
Elena,
So maybe I would like to add that, sorry, Budi?
No, no, Elena or Budi, feel free to come in.
Yeah. Okay, no, I would like to add that so in my opinion, we should keep and protect this space. So, and also, I think it is important to make some adjustment or I don't know, but um, the Club of Rome released a letter this week, so proposing some key actions that UNFCCC should take into account, to ensure that the climate negotiations are helping and supporting the most vulnerable people. So I think we should think about that. And also, I think our role as a part of the civil society organization is to not to be only focused. I think it is important, and I think we need to go through this recommendation that I found very valuable. But also, I think it's important to do more advocacy at the national level. So if we think that we are going to the COP to change a lot the decision that they already have taken before COP, it's really, really difficult, no? And there are some processes as the national determined contribution or the national adaptation plans that should respond to the needs of the people on the ground. So I think we should have different windows and to do advocacy at the national level, also at the regional level. If we are talking about Latin Central America, for example, we have the system integration of Central America, so we should contact them in advance. We should inform them, so and provide policy recommendations. And I think this is something that we can do because there is no discussion that we need to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees. And we are on 1.5, 1.2 degrees, so there is a little time. Some people say that we already lost the battle to keep global warming below 1.5 degrees, but I think uh, we should have hope, and also we should act, no, and we should have an strategic plan, no, to how to influence at the national level, at the regional level, and then what else we can do to have to have a COP that really engage with civil society and other vulnerable people that need to be there on the table.
And for me, very briefly, I could not agree more than what Elena and Rodrigo said. I think we need to define our strategies. I don't think that we need to disengage ourselves from these global processes. There are global processes that we consider very important, so we need to continue engaging, but we should not put all our energy to cope. Elena also mentioned about the engagement at the national level, at the regional level. But I guess us as people coming from different countries connected to our own constituency, as for example, us faith-based organizations, faith-based and human rights organizations, we also have the task to start really providing good examples and concrete practices at the local level, no? And for example, from the Catholic's perspective, Laudato Si, Laudato Deum have given also a little bit of direction for us on how we need to change our lifestyle in the concrete things. It doesn't mean that we should only focus on one action. No, but we have to really multiply our actions into different actions and also divide the strategies, not only at the regional level, not only at the national level, not only at the local level, but everything has to be a interconnectedness. And I think since the hope is also fading away to some extent here and there, so we still need to provide this hope for the people, because only with the good will, with the hope that we can continue our struggle. And I think it's quite important. And this is also been seen in the COP process. No, there are some negotiators who are frustrated when they come to us, when they talk to the people, when they have face-to-face discussions, they have hopes again. The same with us, because sometimes we can be lost in translation, in terms of translation, the language and the reality. But when we are together, we work together, we can provide encouragement to each other, providing hope to each other. And I think it's very necessary and this very critical time.
Okay, thank you. No, and I think Rodrigo said it well when he said maybe it's not a perfect space, but it's a space we have. So my final question, Elena, you'll still be in that space for a few days. What will you be looking at during these last few days in Baku? What will you be paying attention to?
Well, for sure on the climate finances. So I hope that sometimes this is political tactics. That many countries wait only at the very very last minute of the COP to announce that they are taking some decisions. No, so maybe this is the this is what we will see in the next coming days. But I think we should continue engaging with the negotiators, with contacting our country representatives. So we should continue pushing for having the loss and damage as a third pillar of the NCTG. We should continue advocating for transparency and accountability when we are talking about climate finances. No, and also to have clear guidance on ambitious NDCs. No, because I think this is this should be one of the more important outcomes of the COP, as well as the gender action plan. So they need to take the decision for the next round of the gender action plan and have clear indicators. No, on the global warming adaptation, they already countries already mentioned that this will be discussed next in the next session of the Bonn climate negotiations. But I think we are here in Baku, so we try to connect to other faith-based organizations. We try to do advocacy together and to have the same or a common message. I must say a common message. So in the same direction for aiming the same goal. That there will be an ambitious um, climate finance targets.
Thank you very much, Elena, and good luck in the last couple of days. That's all we have time for today, but we'll continue to closely monitor the negotiations in Baku. Next week, we'll try to publish a final video to look at the outcomes of the UN Climate Conference and give a sense of what this will mean for the years to come. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you next week.